Everybody, I'm Dave with Growing Home Garden. Today we are going to get the seed starting setup all set up. And we've got a little bit different situation than we had here than we did at our old house. Our old house, we had it in the garage and it was always cold there. So we had to use heat mats on everything, and we're still going to use heat mats with this, but we've got a little bit different of a setup. In Tennessee, it is very difficult to find a basement house. You don't really have many opportunities for that. And we didn't build a house with a basement, but we've got something almost as good. Let me show you. Right here is our crawl space. And it's not quite a full-size door on this crawl space here, but I can duck just a little bit and not have trouble. But then once you walk in here, you've got plenty of room to stand full, upright, all the way through and all the way under the front porch. And we've got a massive amount of space under this front porch area. And when this was being developed, I had this idea that what if we use this as our seed starting area? So we had the electrician come in, they've got some basic lighting for us, and then they put in outlets along in different places. You can see here the junction box here to take all the way over to this side. And this is right where I want to have all my seed starting shelves set up. There's about 7.5 feet coming across here between the two little areas, and I'm going to do one shelf starting here, and eventually I'll do another shelf there. I may not need both shelves, but I've got the option to do that and expand it further out. You can see here we've got a 4-gang junction box here, or electrical outlet box, whatever you want to call it, and plenty of room for doing some heat mats, and we'll do a power strip here to get some lights and things going for that seed starting setup right there. You can see all the lumber that's left over. We did a concrete ceiling or a concrete floor on the front porch, and this was all the support stuff until the rebar and the concrete solidified up above us. And so we're going to use those leftovers for future projects. We're just keeping them down here for right now. We're going to try to get them out as quick as we can, especially this spring once we start doing some projects with some raised beds, maybe a shed, those kind of things. We don't want to leave it here in this area because it can develop mold, it can develop termites and fun stuff like that, which we don't want to have under the brand new house. So here is where we're going to start. This is going to be the area for the seed starting location that we're going to have. So the first step, of course, is getting this nice and level. There's a few spots here that are a little bit higher than most. You can kind of tell by the brick there. So we'll just kind of level it out a little bit. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Of course, if you're doing this on a nice concrete floor, you probably have a nice level floor already to begin with. So you could just skip all this stuff and move on to the next part. So just underneath me here, you see this landscape fabric. This is greenhouse landscape fabric, something you'd put down to be a nice floor in a greenhouse area. In the past, we have used this in the vegetable garden just down the main row. It's a nice, really thick landscaping fabric. Excellent for what I want to do right here because it will keep all the dirt and stuff that may fall off the plant shelves into one contained area, and I'd just be able to sweep it up. Ideally, I would have this concreted, and I might do that eventually, but for right now, this will work. All right, and for plant shelves, what I've picked out are these here. They are plastic shelves. In the past, I've used a metal wire type shelf, and those are great too, but I picked this mostly because it was a whole lot cheaper than everything else, but also because of the dimensions. If you look here, it's 24 inches wide, 40 inches deep, and 72 inches high. This will give me 5 shelves, and then it's 24 inches deep, which is a little bit larger than a typical 1020 tray, which is what I use for a lot of the seed starting. It's 40 inches wide, which will keep it between that spot and the electrical outlet right there. So that should fit perfectly right on that left-hand side, which is where I'm going to station it. What I'd like to do eventually, if I can find a good table, I'll stick a table over here that I can use as kind of a seed starting area. And this whole little spot will just become my new plant lab, so to speak, here in the new house. So these shelves are extremely easy to put together. They're pretty sturdy too. They're some nice thick plastic. But over here, you just got these little squares. Each one of those is for one of these, one of the legs to go level to level. And it's kind of notched on one side, and that goes into the hole that way, just like that. And once we get all 4 of those on, we put another layer on. Just like this. So what I didn't notice when I first started was that it comes with these little feet, and they go on the very bottom and they're adjustable. So if you've got an uneven side, you can make one side a little taller and then the other side shorter so that you can get everything nice and level. Keeping it level is really important because you don't want to have the water swishing to one side of your trays and then only some of your plants get the water that they need while others start to dry out. So you want to be careful with that. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put these on. I've got the leveling kit in there, so it works over here. I did that one about halfway, that one all the way in, and the one in the back also almost all the way in. I think I have it a little unscrewed, and then the back one I have the most unscrewed, so it's just barely on there. But it seems to have leveled it out really well. I was initially thinking I'd need to go get a little paver stone and put it there in the back and prop it up, but I think I'm good. Now you can tell these are pretty heavy duty because they can carry 250 pounds right there. We're never going to hit 250 pounds with our plants, so that's probably overkill. But it's a nice sturdy shelf, and it's good to have a sturdy shelf for this because you don't want things to be falling over, breaking, getting damaged. But this should work quite well for what we're doing. Now, one thing that's important is when you've got plant lights that you've got a timer for them. And so what I'm going to try to do, I've never done this before, but to use a smart home system. We've got Alexa at home. And so I thought if I could control it with my phone and adjust the times for the lights, that would be a really cool thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these and plug it into the power strip in the wall, in between the power strip and the wall itself, and use that so it can be a master switch to turn on and off the power strip. We'll see how that works. Okay, so I got frustrated yesterday, guys, because I was finishing up trying to get this installed and hooked up to our network, and nothing that I did would allow it to hook up. I tried all kinds of different things, and in the end, I'm going to end up taking this back to the store, and I might option for a different type, a different brand. But then again, I may just go back to the timer that I've used for years. It's just a little plug-in type timer, and that's worked great too. So we'll see. I'll update you later on as to what I decide to do there. So I'm back at it, trying to get my seed starting setup all put together here. And let me show you what we've gotten for this so far. So on the sides of the shelves, I put in these eye hooks, and I just drilled a smaller hole into it and then screwed this in by hand to get those into that plastic. They went in pretty good. And then right here, we've got these little chains that are holding onto these S carabiner type things, which are pretty neat because you can clip into this. You can make it really adjustable for it. They do tend to be a little bit more expensive than, say, just doing a little regular old hook, which came with those things. The only reason I bought them was because I was missing a few and I needed something to hold those up. So several of my lights are actually going to just use this, but a couple of them are going to use these here. The package came with about 6 in it. So you can see it did the same thing here on this one. Now the shelf itself is actually a 3.5-foot shelf, and you can tell that the lights extend on either side of it just a little bit, and they might touch the wall on the one side, but the chains allow a little bit of flexibility for that. Now when you're starting seedlings, you want to have adjustable lights if you can, because you want the light as close to your source as possible. You note here I've just got regular fluorescent lights. I have never really used grow lights, mostly because I don't want to spend the extra money on them, and I've done just fine with regular fluorescents. You can go overboard on buying some really fancy stuff, and I'm sure it works really good, but I don't really think you necessarily have to do that. So I'm going to put in some fluorescent lights here that I bought the other day. They're not actually fluorescent, they're LED, because that's kind of how everything's going. But right here, it's an LED style light that goes into a T8 or a T12 connection, and it's got 3 color options here. You want to pay attention to the lumens, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to set one of them on each ballast there for 5,000, and then the other one at daylight for 6,500, and that's going to just kind of give me a wide spectrum of light for those plants, and we'll see how that does. So there we go. I put in those LED light bulbs in here, and you can tell a distinct difference between the LEDs and the fluorescent. The LEDs are way brighter, which is great for the plants because they need that light. especially here in this type of a space. But I'm going to push this back a little bit after I get another set of lights. I've got 2 more sets of lights here that I can put in. I've got a couple more that I can put in that are somewhere else right now, but this will get me a good start on these plants for right now, because I need to start getting some things going for this year, particularly the peppers and tomatoes. It is time to get going, and I feel like I'm a little bit behind on them. All right, so here we are with the plant shelves put together. I've got 2 sets of light ballasts here on this shelf, 2 sets up here, so a total of 4 right now. I'm going to add some more down on this shelf. I've got these heat mats. I've got 3 of them, and you can see this one's having some trouble laying down, but I've got it plugged in, so it's going to gradually flatten out. They're a little bit cold, and once they're warmed up, they tend to lay flat. Probably would help if I put something on top of it to kind of mush it down a little bit. But these are just your basic seedling heat mats. I've had them for a long time. They're by Hydro Farm. I'll post a link into something similar if I can't find the exact thing in the description of this video. But you can see here I've got 3 shelves ready to go. And the bottom shelf, even if I don't put lights there, there are some seeds that do not require light to germinate. So that would be a great shelf for them to be on with the heat mat. Then I can move them up to the next shelf once they have got some leaves starting to come out, the cotyledons, those first little leaves that you're wanting to see when they first germinate out of the seed. And then up here, one more shelf. Got a little room for storage up top. And I've got this old little greenhouse thing that I'm just going to use for storage at the moment. I would like to get another set of shelves. I may not do that this year. That might be more of a step-by-step. Maybe next year do that. But I think I'll have enough room on this one plant shelf to do everything that I need for the garden this year. So this timer is what I'm going to use to get the lights on and off when I want them to. And we'll set them to the correct amount of time for whatever the variety of plants is that we're growing, probably about 14 hours or so for most of things. The smart switch that I was trying to use absolutely failed. I could not get it hooked up to our network, and I was really disappointed with that. So I'm just going to go with the tried and true thing for right now. I may try a different brand of smart switch later on, but all we're going to do is, it's got 2 plugs on the side, one there and one there, and we're going to plug in this here to go into that, so that all 4 of these cords are hooked into this. Since we're using LED, the voltage isn't really that big of a concern because they're very light on the electrical use. And so we shouldn't have too many problems with overpowering this. Plus the crawl space, everything down here is on its own circuit and should be just fine for this kind of a use. We had it permitted and made sure it was done properly for this type of location. And so here we go. This is our setup that we're going to use this year. We've got 4 lights on this right now. We'll add a couple more as we need to, but it should be plenty of room to get my tomatoes started, get everything going so that we'll be ready to go when it's time to plant outdoors. And I would have liked to do this a couple weeks ago in January. We're at the beginning of February right now, but time just didn't allow me to get to it. But we still have plenty of time. That's the great thing about gardening in Tennessee, is we have a really long growing season. There's lots of opportunity to get your plants in the ground. And even if you don't get them in by April 15th, which is the last for us date, you still got all of May to get your plants in, and you'll still get a really good crop of tomatoes and peppers and whatever else you're wanting to grow here in Tennessee. So I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Growing the Home Garden. Thanks for watching.